Julian Tuwim, a Polish poet, once said, "A selfish man is one who cares more about himself than about me." Perhaps one of the most common misconceptions people have about Christians, or even one that Christians have about Christians, is that we are supposed to be nice. Nice, like a smiling waiter always ready to take another order. Perhaps inspired by the idea that our lives don't belong to ourselves but to the Lord, some people think it means our lives belong to them, and if we are not available 24/7, it means we are hypocrites and whatnot. Obviously, such people are also very good at making you feel guilty, and they can make you question whether you even have the right to make your own choices. And if you take the bait, you can end up equating your conscience with the good humor of people that surround you. So if I'm nice, if I'm making everybody happy, if everybody approves of my choices, it means I'm following the Holy Spirit. If not, if people disapprove, I must be doing something wrong. That's the trap we fall into when we are too dependent on people's opinion about ourselves and when we are alienated from ourselves. When we listen not to the voice of our conscience, but to the voice of the superego. So what's the difference? In very simple terms, if after having done something, you are hating yourself, you're afraid of punishment, you worry that you are not perfect, that you have suddenly become invisible to God, and what would your mom said, and grandma wouldn't approve, that's likely not the voice of conscience. But when you feel bad because you acted against the values you believe in, when you are more concerned about the fact that you may have hurt somebody rather than about not being perfect anymore, as if you could be perfect at all, if you are more concerned about finding a way not to repeat that mistake again instead of wasting time on beating yourself up and hating yourself and punishing yourself, if you think about building the relationship, rebuilding the relationship, restoring the harmony rather than about the punishment, that's likely the voice that it's worth following. The problem is that many people are so distrustful, so doubtful towards themselves that they put the burden of responsibility of deciding what's right in a given situation on other people. And then when they hear this inner voice, let's say, of you must, you should, you have to, the members of our family do it, the members of our group do it, they think that's the right thing to do. But what's the right thing to do? This Sunday we are meditating Mark 3 verses 20 to 35. Then Jesus entered a house, and again a crowd gathered, so that he and his disciples were not even able to eat. When his family heard about this, they went to take charge of him, for they said, "He's out of his mind." And the teachers of the law who came down from Jerusalem said, "He's possessed by Beelzebul. By the prince of demons, he's driving out demons." So Jesus called them over to him and began to speak to them in parables. "How can Satan drive out Satan? If a kingdom is divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. If a house is divided against itself, that house cannot stand. And if Satan opposes himself and is divided, he cannot stand, his end has come. In fact, no one can enter a strong man's house without first tying him up. Then he can plunder the strong man's house. Truly I tell you, people can be forgiven all their sins and every slander they utter, but whoever blasphemies against the Holy Spirit will never be forgiven. They are guilty of an eternal sin." He said this because they were saying he has an impure spirit. Then Jesus' mother and brothers arrived. Standing outside, they sent someone in to call him. A crowd was sitting around him, and they told him, "Your mother and brothers are outside looking for you." "Who are my mother and my brothers?" he asked. Then he looked at those seated in a circle around him and said, "Here are my mother and my brothers. Whoever does God's will is my brother and sister and mother." When I was a little girl, I attended classes on religion, and I remember the fragment that most kids freaked out about was precisely this fragment about the sin against the Holy Spirit. Like 90% of us thought that we have committed it and that we are going to burn in hell. So, side note, just somebody should reconsider how religion is taught to kids. Well, anyway, the essence of this sin is not that even God has limits to his forgiveness. The essence of the sin is rigidity. You can be so attached to the idea of how things are supposed to be that you can miss out on the real thing when it comes your way. There are lots of things in this world that are generally considered good and are widely approved by society. But this in itself doesn't mean that these are absolute truths, because society keeps changing, it never stays the same. What was once unheard of now is widely approved. And there are people who are nice and are people pleasers, and they try to meet all the expectations that society imposes on them. And there are also people who are eccentric, who are rebels, who are proud of the fact that they don't meet the society's expectations. But at the end of the day, it's not really about whether you are nice or eccentric. It's not about whether you should be nice or whether you should be eccentric. The thing is, can you be nice when your conscience calls for it? And can you be eccentric when your conscience calls for it? It's fun to break the rules when all your friends are doing the same, but it's a real challenge to keep the rules, to observe the rules when everybody else is breaking them, and to break them when everybody urges you to keep them. And it's not about always being different than anybody else and always being a rebel or an outsider. It's about following the voice of your conscience, the voice of truth, the voice of love, which can sometimes lead you in a very mysterious way. Once you learn the language of that voice and practice using it, you'll be liberated from people-pleasing, and you'll be more free to recognize the Holy Spirit in action. If you'd like to meditate on that, let's meet here on this channel this Sunday, 10 p.m. Central European Time. Bye.